in the middle of the night. In the darkest corners of Trumptopia, one man, one robot from the future asks deep, thoughty questions. Welcome to another incoherent episode of Late Night Thoughts with your humble, eccentric, absurdist host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Thank you, DJ Zed, with your hot track, Hip Hop, Flute and Beats, Valley of the Hip. That's stuff, noise made out of electronic things. Welcome to Late Night Thoughts. Insert segment title here, question mark, question mark, question mark. That is indeed, dear friends, a late night thought that keeps me up at night. It really does. Sometimes I will wake up and be haunted in the middle of the night, be haunted by the empty void that is the lack of inspiration. And I toss and turn and I worry about the things I cannot control, like what will happen if I just don't do the podcast for a day, or 3 days, or 2 weeks. And I've done that, right? Like, for those of you who are old-time listeners, holy schmoly guacamole, thank you for standing by and keeping those download numbers downloading, because you're making this real. And if you're new and you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry. Just start listening to more of the episodes. I know that some of the subject matter seems dated and like you don't want to listen to it, but there's stuff. I'm not, as you may be catching on, I'm not the kind of person that's like wicked anal about sticking to outlines and blueprints and schematics, right? I'm more about a big brush and a messy canvas. And don't worry, friends, I will be facilitating your experience of my podcast by actually, finally, and for realsies, now that even with my recent sort of return to being able to attend a work type arrangement on a regular basis, because sometimes even when there isn't a worldwide panic inducing coronavirus epidemic, it's hard to tell which one it really is. It's all the same, right? It's all germs, invisible germs eating us from the inside out, rotting our brains, right? Like what? We're all going to turn into zombies and eat one another. No, we're not. Because even though this episode, this segment, does not have a title, there is a through line and a purpose to what I do here on the podcast. And that's to try and bring a about, cultivate, dare I say, bring about or cultivate an appreciation, an interest, a curiosity in the minds and hearts and intellects and other central pockets of consciousness, variously labeled, of those who are listening to the show. It is no accident, dear friends, that I ramble the way that I do, and that ultimately I try to bring it back to, threads that interconnect, so that as you join me in frolicking through this mindscape of mine, you might also begin to detect trends and patterns and start to connect some dots, as it were. To that end, I'm trying to be more like a pseudo disc jockey, like a faux disc jockey. And now that I know that I can do that live, I don't remember if I've put this one on yet or not. Hold on. I was saying that now that I know that I can look up music live. Also, I've got a bunch of other tracks up in here I could just play, because I've played them before, and although they are just music production tracks, they are kind of neat spins on the the remix loopy bits of loopydom. So yeah, late night thoughts. Here we are. We are barreling through the end of March, right? Just moments ago, just the blink of an eye before the last blink of an eye, we were staring down the barrel of the Ides of March. Nothing super horrible happened other than this coronavirus lockdown thing. But I mean, like, no planes fell out of the sky, no spaceships showed up, no earthquakes devoured things, and here we are. Oh, I'm gonna steal this one. Wait, did I already post this as a thing? I may have already posted this. I'm not gonna cheat myself. I'm looking at these music tracks and I'm like, really, bro? Like, I coulda, shoulda, woulda thought about this better and organized this less ridiculous. And I shouldn't necessarily be looking for a fresh new track live on the air, searching through folder things. Is that a folder that I can click on? Why can't I click on these? Apparently, oh, there it is. I could click on that. Are these the same? These are the same, because Misty Morning Jam. I guess I could play this one because it's from the other thing. Yeah, it worked. Cool. All right, cool. So I got a little bit of in-show music. Technology, man, makes our lives better by never quite working exactly as advertised. Let me tell you. No, not complaining about anything in particular. It's just that sometimes when you've got 3 different ways to do the same thing, sometimes you forget which way you did it or which way you set out to do it, and then you're like in the middle of various procedures and you're like, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. So yeah, right, middle of the night thoughts. We just cleared I think, a hurdle. I don't think anyone feels like we cleared a hurdle yet because the pandemonium is still ramping up. But in my humble opinion, and I apologize now in advance, should I might possibly be wrong about this, should it turn out to be that I am indeed totally wrong about this, but I personally, humbly, suspiciously suspect that things are going to only get a little bit worse from here before they start to unwind and get better. I could be wrong. I totally have been forced to say this out loud twice now in mixed company. But never, I loathe the fact, never did I ever think that I would find myself in the position to randomly and almost irrationally be forced to agree with something Donald Trump said. And I'll probably get a lot of hate from this. Or dismissal. But see, the only reason I can totally agree with this, even though Trump said it, is because I get why Trump said it. Trump is misdiagnosed by a lot of people, especially a lot of people who are feeling trauma and anger and violence and regret and comeuppance and all the different things that they could be feeling about his being in office now and his actions leading up to all of this current clusterfuck moment. And from the beginning, from the get-go, I've been pointing out that it's too easy and a little bit unfair and a little bit missing the point to get so angry at him as to just be caught up in your own seething, writhing, boiling anger attitude of angriness. If you're doing that to yourself, oh boy, you're not doing you or anybody else any favors. So let's let that hard pill to swallow sink in a minute for anybody that's new to hearing that, for anybody that needed to hear it again for the umpteenth time, and let's let it chill and do its work while we listen to a little bit of Winter Hunt Dance Reverie by the now infamous DJ Zed, featuring independent collaborator Swedish House 101. I think that's the way I'm going to start doing it. I got to explain that, but I digress. Here's some music. That's the very danceable opening overture to Winter Dance Hunt Reverie, or something like it, by DJ Zed, one of my many nom de guerres, plural. I digress. So I hope that cleansed the palate. Let us remember, dear friends, in the middle of the night, when the lion is sleeping, that, no, why did I invoke that imagery? Like the song says, No, in the middle of the night when we are up and stressed and freaking the fuck out, let us remember. Let us remember truly, deeply, seriously, in all earnestness, what we are inside, where we originate from. Where does our source reside? The existential dilemma of being a human talking meat sack. I'm sorry, that always sounds a bit crass. But of being a bipedal, binoculared, biambulatory flesh puppet. The dilemma is that we don't really understand where things originate from, truly. We know that there are stuff there's all this shit going on in the world, but we can't quite nail down where we ourselves begin and end. We have a general sense, right? The limits of this meat bag, this ambulatory flesh and blood and bone autonomous thing that carries us around. The fascinating thing is, we literally think of it that way. Pause for a hot minute, right? Set all the hysteria aside and just relish the weirdness that is our generalized, normalized, central, sort of everyday, average, run-of-the-mill relationship with our vessel, with this thing that carries us around. Isn't that weird? Isn't that a trip? Like, whoa, your brain should be melting a little bit. And if you're so jaded, if you're so too school for cool... Oh, wait, no. Flip those. Reverse it. Too cool for school. That doesn't, make you tingle a little bit. Then something's up. Something's gotten to you. And you need to shake that loose and get it out. And that's why I always play music in my podcasts. For those of you wondering. Danceable music. Not just any old... but halfway decent. I pick the stuff that I mix because it makes me want to wiggle. And then I mix things together that make me if I heard that walking through a mall or walking into a club, I would be like, yo, where's the dance floor? Okay. So the human body needs that. I'm going to be bold. I'm going to be wild. I want to be absurd and suggest to you, dear friends out there, dear listeners listening, your body needs to wiggle and to dance. And that's why I've laced some pretty wiggleable music throughout this podcast and all of its various experimental tangents, up to and including a totally underground pirate dance party session and several other little mini pretendo concert audio recording type soundscapey shows, of which I will do more. Now that I've compiled enough music that I think I can technically pretend, I'm going to do a little bit of remixing and layering in of new instrumental voices because I'm not done, right? I'm just laying down fundamental chunks, which I'm then going to mash together. And then on top of that, I'm going to play some airy piano or some fanciful exotic zither or something on top of, etc. But I'm a slow, time-dilated, collaborative artist that, as of yet, keeps meeting curious, interesting artists that are almost willing to collaborate with and then kind of just don't, actually. I'm not complaining. I'm a weirdo. And also, times are strange. And people are strangers. When, how's that song go? People are weirdos when times are weird. Such is the weirdness. No, maybe that's not how it goes here, is it? That's from the other place. That's from Mud. Everything on Planet Mud is like some sort of BBC young adult steamy rom-com spoof parody, if there's such a thing, if there's such a genre. It's like, that's what Planet Mud is. It's adorable. Y'all haven't been there yet because you haven't read any of my stuff that I've written that's set in Planet Mud, because I haven't written most of it. But, neither here nor there. And also, baby steps. Baby steps. Right now, I'm trying to get you to giggle. I hopefully have achieved that at least once in the 400 hours of audio blogging I've done recently. And especially now, as we are digging our heels and tightening our belts and really preparing to do whatever it means to do when you fight an invisible enemy. Sorry, but he kept saying that, and others kept echoing it, and then the Q people spun it and tried to make it sound like it was more important than it really was, but he's literally talking about, like, invisible germs that you can't physically see, and the Q base is making it sound like Trump means all the crazy, wacky Q prophecy stuff that the Q prophecy believers believe that magically keeps almost about to happen, not happening yet. Kind of kicking cans down the road sort of vicious cycle is where all them Q prophecies apparently sit. I don't know. I'm not an expert, not pretending to be an expert. I'm just telling you that from the shit that people yell at me about on Facebook, because I ask questions when I'm not aware, when I don't know what's going on, I don't bullshit. I'm like, I don't know what that is. Please tell me. I haven't heard of that. Please inform me, please. Anyways, I digress. What's my point? Yes. During these challenging times, we must remember, dear friends, even in the middle of the night, with the scared, shitless night sweats and woke our partner up from having a horrible nightmare and now we don't know what to do, so we're listening to Mr. Zeppo's Rambly podcast, we can, and we should, connect to our tribal, pre-industrial, aboriginal roots and just wiggle in the moonlight. And release all that negativity and all that judgment and our attachments and our indoctrinations and just soak in the stars and the clouds in the moonlight. Dance now like they're about to make it illegal. Dance now like it's always been magical and healing. Wicked dancing. Dance like you don't care. Dance like there is no tomorrow. Dance like it's gonna heal you. That's right, friends. That's right. It feels good. It feels good to step and wiggle and jiggle to the music. There's no shame in that. There ain't nothing wrong with that. Don't let them take that away from you, because they're gonna try. As you know, I am a person of strange, unique, and eccentric opinion. And thus, I want you to be clear about this particular facet of my opinion. Dance is vital. Self-expression in movement is real. Art with our bodies is more important than profit on commodities. Communicating without words contains magic. And I'm not fucking around. And I hope that you aren't either. To that end, I'd like to share with you some deep thoughts about stuff I've already talked about, stuff we're going to talk about some more, that it won't hurt to kind of spiral in and out of a few more times. And that's this. Quite simple. The universe is alive. Everything that we take for granted needs to be re-examined, in my humble opinion. And all that which we ignore and neglect and ridicule and marginalize, especially because of its spiritual, esoteric, slightly funky, wackadoo, out there idea about, like other things going on in the world besides money and objects being exchanged. The wild and new age notion that these other things are as important, if not more important. I don't know. Maybe, just maybe, those things are actually worth investigating. Now, as always, friends, and if you've heard it before, say it with me. I'm not here to make you blind faith believe in anything that I've got to say. I'm here to encourage you to check things out and diversify your thinking. And share the ride of me audio journaling about my own mental process as I cope with the life circumstances that I find myself in. All things being what they are, it's curiously quite fortuitous, I think, that things are despite being a little bit alarmingly alarmist, not like disastrously, dystopianly, like depressingly as horrible as they possibly could be, because they could be pretty gosh darn more horrible than they actually are. And always, if I may, not to be redundant, if I may humbly remind you, it's worth celebrating those little things and expressing gratitude about them, right? Because you never know when you're going to realize that those little things were the saving grace that spared you from something infinitely worse. You never know. And to that end, I'm going to leave it on this note of whatever I feared at the beginning of the process of saying it's time to do a late night's thoughts with segment, and that made me jokingly prompt the question of like not knowing what to call it, not knowing what to say, not knowing what to talk about. I feel good, and that I think we've shared some quality time together. And I think I've said what needed to be said. And hopefully your ears have heard what they needed to hear. And if you've got questions, send them in. You can always reach me at either of the Facebook pages for this project, The Incorrigible Mr. Zeppo or The Almost Daily Zencast. They each are their own Facebook page. You can also find me on Instagram at Mr. Zeppo. Or you can email your questions in writing or in standard audio file format to the Gmail account, The Incorrigible Mr. Zeppo, no periods, at gmail.com. As always, friends, I am so humbly grateful that you tuned in to listen. May you be safe, may you be sane, may you be healthy, and may you find my show interesting enough to binge listen to now that you're stuck at home during the worldwide coronavirus shutdown of 2020. Late Night Thoughts with Mr. Zeppo is a special segment of the Almost Daily Zencast, which is a production of the SeaTac Studios subdivision of the Multiverse Guild. Thank you for tuning in. Tell your friends, #HealTheWorld with meditation.